going to go over my intermittent fasting schedule for this week, along with my workout schedule. I'm actually going on vacation next week. We're taking a beach trip. We're actually going to Sag Harbor. First vacation I'm having in like 2 years. You know, with the pandemic, as you know, I closed my gym for like 7 months. My wife lost her job. Luckily, she found a job. So this is the first like vacation we're taking. I'm really looking forward to it. I surfed my whole life, so I'm going to be in the ocean. I'll be riding the waves. It should be a lot of fun. So when you leave a comment, like I always say, let me know where you're from. I know we got people from all over the world. The UK, we had people from Bahamas last time, from Ireland, obviously like United States, the New York area. So that'll be fun. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is basically what my goals are. So this particular week, I'm really going to tighten up my diet, and I'm also going to tighten up like my workout plan, and these are my main goals. Okay, I'm going to like definitely reduce calories this week. I'm going to map the whole thing out for you. So I'm going to be in a pretty aggressive calorie deficit all week. Oh, who's here? Hey, Worthing. Hey, Mike. Whoa, from the UK. That's great. Thanks for checking in. Let's pop that comment in here. Fantastic. Thanks for joining in. Okay, cool. So I'm really going to tighten up, the diet. I'm going to reduce calories pretty aggressively this week, and I'll talk about exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to try to lose about 2 or 3 pounds, this week. Some of it's going to be water weight because I'm going to deplete my glycogen stores. When you eat carbohydrates, those excess carbs are stored in your muscles in the form of glycogen, and there's like a 4-to-1 water retention for every gram of glycogen you store in your muscles. So when you deplete glycogen, you're going to lose a lot of water weight. So I'm going to lose some water weight this week. I'm probably going to lose a pound or so, maybe a little bit more body fat. But I'm going to gain it all back when I go on vacation next week. And that's what this whole video is all about. And I always do this before I go on vacation, because when I go on vacation, I generally take a diet break and kind of eat whatever I want. Plus, maybe I'll be having a couple of cocktails now and then. So I want to go into the trip a little thinner and just ready to eat maintenance calories or even more. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to deplete glycogen stores. That's my other goal. And at the end of this week, I plan on being pretty much in ketosis, meaning that my liver is going to be low on carbohydrates, my muscles are going to be low on carbohydrates, my liver and muscles are both going to be low on glycogen, and then my liver is going to be taking body fat and turning it into ketone bodies like beta hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, acetone, all those ketones bodies. I'm going to be in ketosis probably by Friday, pretty deep ketosis. So that's my goal. And then I'm going to jump out of ketosis when I go on vacation. But this next slide is a real cool slide. Who's that? Chris? Chris from Northern Ireland. Is this great? I went to Ireland. This is like before my kids are born. My kids are 20. Oh, Harriet's in here too. This is great. Oh, thanks, Harriet. Actually, I went to Ireland before my kids were born 20 years ago, and it was one of the most incredible trips I ever went on. I didn't go to Northern Ireland, though. We did like Galway, and I'm dying to go back and go to Northern Ireland. I was there 3 weeks with my whole wife's family. It was an incredible... I actually surfed in Ireland. I wish I could remember the town, where I surfed. It was an incredible trip. I'm dying to go back. We toured the Waterford factory, where they make the crystal. It really was one of my all-time favorite trips. And why I remember it so well too is that I remember it must be close to 1989, 1990, because I remember just starting. Like I opened up a gym, and then my wife talks me into taking this trip, and like, oh my God, I was gone for 3 weeks. I thought I was going to lose my whole business, but everything turned out okay, obviously. Okay, so let's first go over like my workout plan for this week, and this is like I'm going to make a couple of modifications. One big modification I'm going to make this week, because I want to definitely be in a calorie deficit. I want to burn some body fat, like I said, deplete glycogen stores. I'm going to do all my workouts in a fasted state. See, typically I would do all my cardio workouts in a fasted state. My long, easy cardio, when I take my 2-hour walks, I always do fasted. And generally even my HIIT cardio, my high intensity cardio, when I'm spiking my heart rate, 80-90% effort, if not higher, I generally do that in a fasted state. But when it comes to my resistance training, when it comes to like lifting weights, since it's like a high intensity, I generally will take like some type of a protein shake, like pretty much right before the workout, and maybe even I'll drink half of it before the workout, and I like to sip half of it during it. And what I generally take in, I've talked about this before, I love like celery juice. I'll buy a 16-ounce container of celery juice. I generally buy that Evolution brand. It's actually the Starbucks brand, but it's 100% celery juice, only 35 calories, loaded with potassium, got good sodium, so it has the electrolytes in it, exactly what I'm looking for. And then either I'll put 2 scoops of whey protein isolate, and I always go with an isolate because I want everything stripped out of it. I don't want any fat. I just want the amino acids, just want the protein. So maybe I'll put in like 25, 30 grams of whey protein, or if I don't do that, I generally do a combination of collagen protein and some of the brands there. I like Vital Proteins. I think that's a good brand. I'll put a couple of scoops of collagen protein, but collagen is an incomplete protein. It's lacking tryptophan, but it's good for your skin, good for your connective tissue, good for your hair, eyes, and nails. I have to say, since I've been taking collagen protein, my nails are so much stronger. I was getting what I call those old man nails. My nails were splitting all the time. My nails are so strong enough from collagen, I feel like I can screw a screw in a wall like a screwdriver. It's unreal. But I'll mix the collagen protein with some hemp seed. Just maybe 1 scoop of hemp seed, because that's a complete protein. So that's my combination. Now, generally, I would do that before a resistance training workout because it gives me more energy. It also speeds recovery. But since this week I'm looking to really reduce calories, I'm going to eliminate that, that pre-protein shake, and I'm going to do all my resistance training fasted. So that's another big change I'm making this week. Another thing I'm going to do is I generally do more split routines, meaning that I generally do like upper body, then I may just do lower body one day, and then I may just do upper body like the next day. This week I'm going to change it up. I'm going to do just 3 full body workouts. I'm going to do more of that metabolic stress type training. I mean, I'm going to pump myself up. I'm going to do relatively high reps. I'm going to close the muscle down, build up those metabolites. Just so you know, I've talked about this before. There's like 3 general ways in which you build muscle hypertrophy. There's muscle tension. You lift heavy weights, progressive resistance, you overload the muscle, and that develops. Obviously, you get bigger muscles. Then you can break down a muscle, make little microscopic tears in the muscle. It repairs themselves, it gets bigger. And the third way, some people think it's debatable, but I'm a big believer in it. It's called metabolic stress, where you pump the muscle up. You do high reps, you keep continuous tension. Now that I'm turning 59, when you get older, it's so easy and good on the joints, I find, that metabolic stress type training. So that's what I'm going to be doing all day long. And I'm going to be, it's funny, I got this term from Frank Zane. If you see the picture behind me, he's my favorite bodybuilder. He calls like the breathless state. I'm just going to be going from one exercise to the next, pump the muscle up, be somewhat out of breath the entire workout, maybe do like a 45-minute full body resistance training workout. And I'm going to do all the basic movements like you've heard me talk about before. Like I'll do dumbbell squat, maybe RDLs, Romanian deadlifts. Then I'll do like seated rows for my back, lat pull down, bench press, flies, lateral raises for shoulder, military press, bicep curl, tricep extension. 1 or 2 hard work sets, per exercise, maybe 15, 18 exercises, and I'll be done in like 45 minutes. So I'm going to do that 3 times this week. Okay. So say on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they're all fasted. Then on Tuesday and Thursday this week, I'm going to do 2 high intensity cardio sessions, once again in a fasted state. So I'm going to get on the elliptical. I'm going to warm up for 5 minutes. Then I'm going to do like 1 minute really hard, 1 minute really easy. And I'm going to do that for 20 minutes. So I'm going to do 10 1-minute intervals. I generally don't do a HIIT workout that long. So that's another changing I make typically, because see, the high intensity training increases your VO2 max. Your VO2 max is your maximal oxygen consumption. So when you want to determine how fit somebody is, like if I was in school and we would ventilate someone, we'd measure how much oxygen they're consuming, how much CO2 they're exhaling. You can determine their exchange ratios and just how hard they're working. Typically you can increase your VO2 max by not doing long high intensity workouts. You can just do maybe 4 or 5 30-second intervals. So typically my HIIT routine, when I'm doing this like most of the year, is only maybe 12 minutes. Now I'm going to do 30 minutes though. So I'm going to do 10 1-minute intervals. So I'm upping my high intensity. Why I'm doing that? It's not like it's going to make me any more fitter, but I will burn more calories. And there's something called EPOC, exercise post oxygen consumption, meaning that when you do these high intensity workouts, you're going to burn more body fat post workout, and possibly even up to like 24 to 48 hours. So I'm really going to kind of hammer it, kind of hit it hard this week. So I'm going to do 2 hard high intensity workouts. And I'm also going to do this at the end of the day. So like, for example, this morning I did my full body resistance training. Right, I'm still fasted. After this live stream, say around 4 o'clock, I'm gonna break my fast. I'm gonna break my fast. We're gonna talk about my schedule, and then later today, before dinner, I'm gonna take a 1 hour walk at a comfortable level. But I'm gonna do something very interesting during this 1 hour walk. I'm gonna do it following blood flow restriction. I have another slide. Let me explain to you what blood flow restriction is. Okay. And this is the device. I'm using this Ketosis device, but you can also just use these bands if you want to try blood flow restriction. See, blood flow restriction just means that you somewhat put a tourniquet around your limb. So, for example, these bands below on this lower picture, they're really inexpensive. You can buy them on Amazon for like $10, $15, $20, all different brands. See the numbers on them? So you're basically taking an electric band, and I'm going to anchor it high on my thigh and pull it pretty tight. And what this does, it makes the blood pool within your leg. So it minimizes that venous return back to the heart. So metabolites actually build up in your legs, and you get an incredible pump, literally, just from walking. Sometimes, I've also talked about how I have a bad knee. I had a knee operation like about 10, 12 years ago. It's a simple meniscus operation. I had a horrible result. I've had like a chronic bad knee for 12 years. Really affects my training. So I do a lot of my leg training actually with blood flow restriction, because you can get a response. You can get that, like I talked about it, that metabolic stress with very light weights using blood flow restriction. So when I take my hour walk, I'm not going to use these bands. I'm going to use more of a sophisticated system. This upper picture is called Ketosis. And a guy from Japan came up with this. This is a machine where first I'm going to put this, for example, this tourniquet, this device, which is the lower band that velcros around my leg, and it has almost like a tire tube in it. And this machine actually, every, say, minute, pumps up and restricts blood flow. So blood pools in my legs. I'm going to get like an amazing leg workout walking comfortably just for 60 minutes. It's called occlusion training. It's really incredible. There's a lot of science behind it. Great for muscle recovery, great for hypertrophy, great for, just great for getting an amazing pump while using light weights. It creates like a low oxygen environment. So it's really like pumping up your muscles. I love it. Plus, it makes your heart rate a little bit higher. So literally from walking for 60 minutes, I'm going to get a great response. But if you want to fool around with this, I did one video on blood flow restriction, but I think I'm going to do a really good video this week on blood flow restriction. I'm going to break down all the science for you. So look for it. It'll come out this week, and I'll explain the Ketosis system. This Ketosis system is kind of expensive. I think I paid $800 for this system. But this one here, you can buy them, like I said, $15, $20 on Amazon. But Google it. But I'm going to do a great video on blood flow restriction. Okay. So now let's talk about, if anyone has any questions, just let me know. If Chris, Harriet, anyone has a question, let me know. Okay. So let's go over my, I like this slide a lot too, because this, in my opinion, this is the secret to long-term fasting, to long-term intermittent fasting. You see how I put the parentheses on intermittent, and then I outline time-restricted eating, cycling calories, diet breaks. So this is the key, and this is exactly what I'm doing, because next week, like I said, I'm taking a diet break, meaning that I'm going to be upping my calories. I'll probably be at maintenance or beyond, and that's what I think is the key to intermittent fasting. The people make mistakes with fasting and these fasting schedules is that they stay in a calorie deficit for too long. Like, for example, they don't put the intermittent back in intermittent fasting. Say they're doing like a 16-8 and they're in a calorie deficit, and they stay there indefinitely until they hit a weight loss plateau or until it starts reversing and they start gaining weight, because they're not cycling your calories. The key to intermittent fasting, the key to fasting, the key to losing weight is that you have to go into a calorie deficit, and then you have to come out of a calorie deficit. And I talk about this all the time, like metabolic adaptation. When you lose weight, your metabolism will always slow down to some degree. Just think, you're a smaller person. You require less calories to survive, right? So your metabolism slows down. But you can over-exaggerate that slowdown in your metabolism if you're like just chronically, indefinitely restricting calories. Eventually, your metabolism is going to slow down, and actually it's going to overdo the normal metabolic adaptation. So in my opinion, the secret to long-term with intermittent fasting or weight loss or calorie restriction in general is you have to cycle your calories. So that's exactly what I'm doing this week. See, typically I do intermittent fasting, meaning that maybe I'll do 16-8 one day. Then maybe the next day I'll do a 20-hour fast and give myself only a 4-hour eating window. So I'll be restricting calories more that day. The third day I may take a day off. Wake up, normally eat at maintenance calories, eat 3 meals a day. Then the fourth day I may do an OMAD day, restrict calories. So that's my favorite way of doing it. But I also like to do time-restricted eating, and you'll see in the slide, that's what I'm going to be doing this week, where I'm going to do the same intermittent fasting, same fasting schedule. I'm going to be doing a 20-hour fast every day this week. So that's called time-restricted eating. So I'll be in an aggressive calorie-restricted state, but then next week, I'm taking a diet break. I'm going to up my calories, have some fun, and boost up my metabolism at the same time. So that's what I wanted to point out here. If you're doing time-restricted eating, where you're in a restricted calorie state, you're restricting calories, and you're doing the same fasting protocol every day, I think every 4 or 5 weeks, even 6 weeks, you got to take a diet break. Oh, Michael's here from Liverpool. Man, I got a lot of people from the UK. This is great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for showing up. This is great. So if you're doing a time-restricted eating, say you're doing like 18-6, you're doing it every single day, 5-6 weeks, you lost some weight, time to take a diet break, time to take a week or two off, up your calories to at least maintenance. And my whole formula, like people say, Mike, what's maintenance? Now you can Google it and do a complicated formula and try to figure out your energy expenditure and your resting metabolic rate. But I think the best way just to do it is 10 times your body weight is a good calorie restriction, meaning that if you're 150 pounds, if you eat 1,500 calories a day, you're going to be in a good calorie deficit, generally, depending upon how active you are, right? Now, if you add 500 calories, or say 750, depending upon how active you are, I think that's going to put you roughly at maintenance. So that's how I do that. So if you're doing time-restricted eating every single day for weeks, and you've been doing it 5-6 weeks, you've been in a calorie deficit, take a break. Up your calories, eat 500 calories more for a week or two, and then go right back into time-restricted eating. But if you're doing intermittent fasting and you're automatically cycling your calories by some days eating less, like doing maybe only an OMAD day, and then the next day doing, say, a 16-8 where you're eating more, you're covered. You're automatically cycling your calories. That's why bodybuilders do so well. Bodybuilders, like physique athletes, always cycle their calories. They go into a calorie deficit, they come out of a calorie deficit. You ever see Dwayne Johnson, The Rock? And he talks about his cheat days where he's eating, 2 pizzas and like a tray of sushi. But he always talks about in interviews, no, that's good. You need cheat days, because a lot of times, Dwayne is like restricting calories. He may be in a calorie deficit for a month. His metabolism slows down. He burns some body fat. He wants to boost it up. He wants to put on muscle. He takes a cheat day, or maybe he takes a diet break. Really important. Okay, so let's go over like my fasting schedule. This is what I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you meal examples too. This is what I'm going to do this week. Okay, I'm going to do a strict time-restricted eating protocol where I'm going to be fasting for 20 hours every single day. So I'm still in a fast right now, and then I'm going to take in all my calories within just a 4-hour eating window. But I'm going to do this with no snacks. Like typically I may have a snack or two if I was doing like a 20-hour fast. But this week I really want to be in a calorie deficit. And instead of really eating 2 meals within a 4-hour eating window, I'm going to eat what I call 1.5 meals. But the key to this is that I'm still going to prioritize protein. See, I never reduce protein. Because if you reduce protein, you can, especially if you're cutting calories, you're going to risk losing muscle mass. That's the last thing I want to do, is lose muscle. We want to maintain as much muscle as possible, especially when you're losing weight. Most people who lose weight lose muscle. And yeah, you lose body fat too, but you want to preserve muscle. Muscle increases metabolism. You want muscle. There's so many metabolic reactions that good things that muscle does. Plus, I want to look good. I want to look muscular, right? Let's see what we got. Yeah, nice advice. Think I'll change it up during the week. Been 16-8 for what seems, yes, definitely. I would definitely change that. I mean, first of all, I don't want to mess you up. If you're having great success with 16-8, another thing you could do is you can stay with 16-8, but then you can just make a real conscious effort on how much food you're eating while doing 16-8. Meaning that maybe one day you do 16-8 and eat 3 meals a day. Right? So you're upping your calories. The next day you do 16-8, do 2 meals a day, no snacks. So you can do that too. But I would definitely mix it up, for sure. Okay, so like I said, I'm always prioritizing protein, even when I go low calorie. So let me give you some example of some modifications I'm going to make to my diet. I got a little camera change here. We got 2 different cameras here, which is kind of cool. Let me give you an example of, see this bottom slide? Thanks for that. I appreciate it. See this bottom slide? This is what I typically, on the bottom left, I'm going to point to it here. I wish I had a pointer, with this software. I don't have a pointer. But see where I'm having the smoked salmon, high in protein. A general rule, every 4 ounces of chicken, fish, meat, animal protein is about 25 grams of protein. And I like to eat, I always say a minimum of 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight. That's like an adequate amount of protein for most people. So say you're a guy, gal, you're 150 pounds, 20% body fat, you want about 115 grams, 120 grams of protein a day. I personally go a little bit higher. I go upwards of 1 pound per pound of body weight. So I like to make sure I eat enough protein. So on a typical day, like when I'm just like, not my pre-workout week, like the theme of this video, I would have like 4 to 6 ounces of salmon. I also would have a can of sardines. So I'm like 50, 60 grams of protein. Not only do I have an avocado here, I have an avocado with like a scoop of guacamole on top of it. Then I have some strawberries, some blueberries, and I always try to eat fermented foods every single day because it feeds the good bacteria in your stomach. And actually, I'm going to do another video on that. I just read a study that was incredible. They were comparing fermented foods like sauerkraut, pickles, what's that drink? Kombucha. They were talking about fermented foods, comparing it to fiber. And they determined that fermented foods had a better response, better like microbiome diversity response when it comes to like leaky gut. Leaky gut means when like parts of your stomach opens up and like junk, they call them PSLs, LPSs, I'm sorry, like leaks out and kind of like just creates autoimmune issues in your problem. So fermented foods are so important to eat. I'm going to do a whole video about it. I want to do a little more research though before I do the video. But see, typically like the volume of food here, and this is down more of what I'm going to eat. Like when I break my fast today, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to have 1 serving of protein, maybe 25, 30 grams, half an avocado and some berries. So I'm eliminating that second servings of protein, plus these sardines are in olive oil, so it is a relatively higher in calories. Plus I had an avocado with a scoop of guacamole, and eliminate that. So I'm going to eliminate a few hundred calories, if not more, from my meal. So this is going to be my half meal. And then, but when it comes to dinner, I'm probably going to eat the same. And I wanted to give you 2 examples of how I like to eat dinner. I always like to have a nice, good, big piece of protein. And then I like to have 2 different colored vegetables. So I figure with this, I think this is cod. Then we got some cauliflower and we have mushrooms. So do 2 different colored vegetables, high in fiber, high in vitamins, high in minerals, high in nutrients. Eat a rainbow color of vegetables. And you want the diversity in your food for sure. And I think this is Arctic chard, what I always talk about, my wife's favorite type of fish. And this is obviously asparagus. And we got some cauliflower, again, 2 different colors. So this is typically how I would eat. Is I would have a lunch, like a bigger lunch after I break my fast, say after workout, have the same size dinner. And I also may throw a snack or 2 in there. Like I may grab a handful of pistachio nuts, right? I may have some slices of turkey. I may increase my protein. So I'm definitely, I may have a glass of wine at night or something like that. But that's all the stuff I'm going to be eliminating this week. I'm going to keep the diet really tight, no snacks at all. And I'm just going to be having a half lunch, but I'm still going to have a full dinner. Now, I'm also going to be drinking, my black coffee in the morning, which I love, my Pellegrino water. I'm a big believer in drinking half your weight in ounces of water every single day. So once again, if you're 150 pounds, a minimum of 75 ounces of water. I'm going to do that all the time. I'm gonna do that all the time. And I like Pellegrino water. I talk about this all the time too because it's high in magnesium. The adequate intake of magnesium is like 400 milligrams a day. Most people don't come close. So every liter of Pellegrino water has about 50 milligrams of magnesium, which is really important. And, I may have some herbal tea. I like hibiscus tea. Hey, Brent is here. Hey, Brent, what's up? Thanks for joining in. This is great. We're getting a good turnout today. So I keep on doing all those low-calorie herbal teas. So I think I'm going to eliminate at least 750 calories per day, from my diet. So my goal is to be, like I said in this first slide, I'm going to be in ketosis, I think, by the end of the week. Meaning I'm going to really be depleting like glycogen stores. Another thing I might do during the week is I may have a sweet potato here or there, or maybe a resistant starch like I like. I survived. Oh, he's great. I forgot about that, Brent. That's right. I'm so happy. I remember Brent showed up in one of my live streams maybe a month ago, and he said he had COVID and he got over it. So I'm so happy about that. That's great. I'm glad you're feeling better. Wonderful. So I'm looking to be in ketosis at the end of the week. And you probably do. If you don't know what ketosis is, it just means that your liver is producing ketones. That means your liver is taking body fat and converting it to ketone bodies and burning it. It's funny. People always ask me, "Oh, Mike, I've been eating really low fat and I'm using the urine strips and I'm not in ketosis." See, what happens when you first go on a high fat diet, you can probably get away with using the urine strips. See, the urine strips measure beta hydroxybutyrate. It measures acetoacetate. Okay, that's the ketone body that it measures. And when you first go into ketosis and you're using the urine strips, it doesn't necessarily mean, and it shows that you're in ketosis, it doesn't necessarily mean that your body is burning those ketones. It means that your liver is making them. So for example, if you go on a ketogenic type diet, say you go on a high fat diet, people ask me this all the time, say, "Mike, I was in ketosis, all of a sudden I'm not in ketosis." It may be a good sign that the urine strips don't show that you're in ketosis. That means you're burning the ketones. So you really have to use those blood meters. I was doing it, but I'm too neurotic. Plus, those blood meters are really expensive. I just know, I can feel it, when I'm in ketosis. I can feel the flatness. I can feel that I'm low on carbohydrates. And to some degree, sometimes I feel like I lose my pump in the gym, that I can't pump myself up, like my muscles are not full with carbohydrates. But if you stay in ketosis more longer term, you become glycogen sparing, meaning that your body gets so good at burning fat that your glycogen levels may stay half full within your muscles, so you really can work out. But I'm pretty much fat adapted now, but I haven't really gone straight up into ketosis in a while. So it should be interesting how I feel at the end of the week. I'll report to you guys. Let's see what Mike's got to say here. So Mike said, "You survived and rebranded, flew well." That's great. I'm glad we had. So you're getting some good support, Brent. Over 99% survival rate. P.S. Don't take the poison. I guess Mike's a naturalist. I hear you, Mike. Yeah, I know. I'm glad everyone's doing well, but I'm starting to get a little concerned, like in the New York area. It's interesting. Every Monday morning when I show up at my gym, I get the COVID report. It's on my phone, like my town. Because I had to close my gym for 7 months and I had to follow all these restrictions on like sterilizing everything and masks. And now everything really settled down. But my message this morning was somewhat concerning, saying that, they're talking about how the cases, I think, in Westchester, where I live, went from like 0.03 now to like 1%. Now 1% of the people are testing positive, and they weren't they were somewhat cautious with this message. It's my first negative message in a while, and they're saying that who knows what's going to happen. We may start requiring masks again in small businesses, and we'll see. I'm not going to start worrying about it yet. But stay healthy, get sunlight, get the vitamin D, exercise, get some fresh air, do all the good stuff. The fasting is a great way also to autophagy, cell cleansing, good way to improve your immune system. Yeah, so Brent had the issue where he couldn't smell anything. Yeah, I know. That's one of the typical symptoms. Okay, so I guess you generally got my whole gist of what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to be tightening up the diet this week, doing all my workouts in a fasted state. I'm going to be reducing calories at anywhere between 500 to 750 calories per day. I'm going to do that 5 days in a row, and then I'm going to take a diet break on vacation, up my calories. So I'll probably gain 2-3 pounds, fill up my muscles with glycogen again, and hopefully I'll come back from my trip exactly where I am right now, which will be kind of cool. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see this comment. Let me shrink this down so I can. I've been low carb, minus 20 grams each day. Find it very hard to get back into ketosis if I drop out. How do you do it so quickly? Well, why I think I do it kind of quickly is that I actually, I'm always eating relatively low carb. My general rule is, and I'm really active working, I eat probably about maybe 50 net grams of carbs every day. So I'm pretty much fat adapted already. And literally, if I did one 20-hour fast, I don't do the blood meters anymore. Like if I did a high intensity, resistance training workout like I did today, and then I'm going to be fasting 20 hours a day and 20 hours tomorrow, I'm going to guess I'm already going to be in a mild state of ketosis. Like if I had the blood meter, I bet I would just be mildly in ketosis already, but, and then I may pop out of it once I eat dinner and all that, but I probably will be in ketosis for a few hours. But you know what? What's a little confusing too in that, sometimes even when it doesn't register, like forget like when I'm talking about the urine strips, even like a diabetic, even someone who eats normally, when they go to sleep at night, their liver's producing some ketones. It just, you may not be able to necessarily measure it. It's somewhat of a never-ending process, ketosis. Even people who don't necessarily eat low carb. So even if you're not getting these high readings of ketosis, your liver's still producing ketones. All these things kind of like meld in together. Like unfortunately, even when you're fasting, you could be burning fat off your stomach, and you could be unfortunately putting back, storing fat on your butt to some degree. You might be burning much more fat than you're storing, but all these things intertwine. So even someone who's not eating a low carb diet, when they go to sleep at night and they're sleeping for 8 hours and not eating, I'm sure their liver is producing some ketones. To some degree. They may obviously not in full-blown ketosis, but all these, even autophagy, everyone talks about autophagy, right? Like the longer you fast, the general consensus is you upregulate autophagy, right? It's hard, it's hard to measure autophagy unless you go to certain doctors can measure it for you. But autophagy also is somewhat of a never-ending process as well. You're working out, that upregulates autophagy. Whenever you're not eating, whenever you're in repair mode, you upregulate autophagy to some degree. And all these things kind of like intertwine within themselves. Let's see what Dan had to say. Okay. When introducing carbs back in after keeping them low, which do you prefer? That's the cool thing. I don't know if you caught the slide about my meals. I stick with just my normal meal plan. I don't really, it's not like I'm going to do like a high carb day. If I'm straight up like gonna do like a cheat day, right after like a fast or something, I keep it relatively on the clean side. The one thing I try not to ever do, and I think this is, and who I learned this from, but I was doing it instinctively too. I love Dr. Ted Needleman's The PE Diet, and he talks about this a lot too. That's a great book, one of my favorite diet books of last year, and he has some cool animations. He actually drew all the animations in it. I think it's an ebook, but I heard he just came out with a hard copy. And he says, and I say the same thing too, the one thing you can't do is mix those simple processed carbohydrates with high fat at the same time. Do like cookies, cakes, like a donut would be like a perfect example is that. Like you can't have like a processed carbohydrate like a flour, like a sugary, like a glazed donut, like flour and sugar, that's going to crazy spike insulin. At the same time, you're having like vegetable, like a high fat at the same time, because it's going to spike insulin. It's going to make it easy for you to store the fat. And even besides that, there's no satiety in those type of foods, meaning that you have one donut, you want to eat 3 donuts, right? You have one potato chip, you want to eat the whole bag. So that's one thing I'll never do, Dan. I'll never mix carbs and fat together. I mean, I'll have vegetables with like some olive oil, but to me that's a high fiber type carb. But I'm not gonna have unfortunately, I'm not gonna have pizza with bad oil on it. Maybe if it was like like that Napolitano pizza with some fresh mozzarella and olive oil, I may do something like that. But I'm not gonna have even a baked potato. I'm not gonna douse it with butter. But I would have say I want to carb up a little bit. I would have just maybe 2 sweet potatoes. Or I would even have, I like that whole concept. I do believe in the concept of resistant starches, where you take, you bake a couple of potatoes, you put them in the refrigerator overnight, they chemically change and they become a resistant starch, meaning that they become resistant to digestion. Same thing with sweet potatoes, are a little bit of a resistant starch. Some people don't believe in it. I know Dr. Stephen Gundry, he talks about it all the time. Love his books too. The Plant Paradox, the Energy Paradox. I read all the Longevity Paradox. I like Dr. Gundry. He's a big believer in resistant starches as well. But I did watch a video on YouTube by Dr. Ken Berry, and I do like him very much. And he doesn't buy this whole concept of resistant starches. He doesn't think they chemically change. He's doing keto. He's on a carnivore diet now. First he went keto. Now he's like carnivore. He's only eating protein. Sometimes he goes a little keto-ish. But I think there is something to resistant starch. So if I'm going to really do a cheat day, I'm probably just going to eat all my normal foods, like after a fast or after ketosis, but just increase the quantity of it. Or if I want to just like carb up, I may just have like a couple of sweet potatoes. And actually, I even did a video about this, and you know who talked about this? I'm quoting everyone's book today. You know, Ben Bickman. I love this guy too. He's like he's a PhD. He's a professor. He wrote that book, Why We Get Sick. Another one of my favorite books for last year. And he referenced a study in that book, and I actually found the study and did a video about it, talking about if you, for example, eat your protein before your carbohydrates, it's going to minimize blood sugar and minimize your insulin response, meaning that, and we're not talking about vegetables. So you can literally have like an 8-ounce steak with your 2 vegetables, like I'm talking about with broccoli and say like string beans, and say you want to have a sweet potato, say you want to get your carbs. You wait 45 minutes after that meal, then you have your carbs by themselves, and that's going to minimize the spike in insulin and minimize your blood pressure response. Minimize your blood sugar response from the meal, which will help you lose weight and better for your health. You know who else talks about this? Ben Greenfield. I always pronounce it Greenfield or Greenfield. You know, Ben Greenfield Fitness. He's got a great podcast. He always talks about he eats his carbs at night, you know, after his main meal. Who else talked about that? Besides Ben Beckman. You know who talks about that too? Thomas DeLore. You know, we do a lot of similar videos, but you know, I've got 8,000 subscribers. He's got about 2 million. He always talks about, you know, eating your carbs. Don't mix carbs and fats together and eating your carbs after a meal. I definitely think there's something to it. But I don't want people to become neurotic and go too crazy. But these are some of the things I do. Say I go into ketosis, when I break out of ketosis, or maybe when I take a cheat day, I try to minimize the damage as much as possible. But still, I mean, I'm still a big believer. I know some people who are into intermittent fasting thinks it's only hormones. It's definitely a big factor, keeping insulin levels low, you know, and keeping glucagon high, that insulin-glucagon ratio. You know, like glucagon is the inverse hormone to insulin. When insulin is high, everything's being stored. You're not burning fat. Glucagon is low. Then the inverse happens, like when you're in a fasted state, right? The increased blood sugar, the liver produces glucagon and helps release fat from fat cells. Some people call it the fat-burning hormone. I do believe that fasting does, you know, hormones play a big part, but also calories, no question about it. You know, restricting calories do count no matter what. Even when you, you know, another one of my favorite books, I talk about it all the time, Dr. Jason Fung's book, The Obesity Code. Love the book, but he's a real believer in like it's all hormones, that has really nothing to do with calories. But then you do hear him on it. I've heard him on podcasts, and people straight up ask him, do calories count? And he does, well, you know, he said, well, you know, they do count. You know, it's not like they don't count. But for example, you can be in a hormonal state where, like, if you're always eating like processed carbohydrates, constantly spiking insulin, you know, hunger hormones like ghrelin. I mean, you can create hunger from hormones, right? There's that whole set point theory of weight loss, that as soon as you lose weight, you restrict calories too aggressively, you lose weight too quickly, right? Like metabolic adaptation, we're talking about, your metabolism slows down. Then the set point theory, your body will do anything it can to make you gain weight again, right? It'll increase the hormones that make you hungry, like ghrelin, right? It'll slow down your metabolism. It'll do anything you can. So it's a combination of the slowing down of your metabolism and the hormonal changes that make you more hungry. There's so many. There's leptin resistance, right? Leptin is the hormones that release from fat cells that tells your brain to stop eating. People become leptin resistant, right? How do you reverse leptin resistance? Meanwhile, the fat cells are still releasing leptin, right, to tell your brain stop eating. But if your brain doesn't recognize the signal because you're leptin resistant, how do you do that? Dr. Jason Fung would say, well, it's all talking about resetting your set point, keeping insulin low, staying in a fasted state, increasing your insulin sensitivity can help you with leptin resistance. So you can't just restrict calories. You can't just restrict calories and and have like 6-7 meals a day. You're not going to get that hormonal response that you would from being in a fasted state. So like there's two sides to it. I'm a believer in both. I think calories definitely do count, and I also think there are tremendous hormonal benefits of being in a fasted state. So we get some questions here. And yeah, does that work with cake? Yeah, I know cake. I'm supposed to cake. Cake is not a good one, because it is, unfortunately, it's processed carbs with fat, right? I guess there are keto cakes you can fill around with stuff like that. Oh, Andrea's here. Hey, Andrea. Yes, you're right, Mike. That's why I got a bit confused with the Jades of Fung. I agree. And Andrea, yes, Andrea, I got your email today, and I tried to open it. I couldn't open it. Something happened with it. I think I have to do something special. But I have time tonight, and I will look at your email. I'm excited to see, what you've been doing over the past week. So I'm really excited. Thanks for emailing, Andrea. That's great. Okay, guys. So any other questions? Let's go to Q. Oh, so I guess we're in Q&A, right? Let's go to Q&A. So I guess you got the gist of this, what I'm doing this week. I'm tightening everything up, tightening up the diet. Okay, we'll send it. We'll resend. Thanks, Andrea. Definitely resend it to me. It came in notes. I just couldn't open it up for some reason. Okay, so you got my gist. I'm tightening up the diet, tightening up the workout, and I'm really looking forward to hitting the beach next week. First vacation in 2 years. I don't think I'm going to surf, though. I used to do a lot of surfing. There's a famous surfing spot in the Hamptons called Ditch Plains. World-class surfers. I'm going to tell you a story where I almost drowned. Like, if you're into surfing, I was never a great surfer. My wife thought I was a good surfer, and she got me into trouble because she would plan these surf trips. Like, I've been to Hawaii, been to Costa Rica, and all the surfing. I would almost drowned in all multiple places in the world. But what happened to me once in Ditch Plains, which was really interesting. I went there surfing really early in the season. Ditch Plains, like if you're from the East Coast, it's probably, you get world-class surfers there, and you can get some pretty good waves. Typically, like Long Island, like the Northeast, you get a 2-foot wave, 2.5-foot wave. That's a nice day. It's breaking nice, and that's the type of surfer I was. But if you want to surf bigger waves, you got to drive out to Montauk, which from New York, you get like a 2-hour ride out east to get to Montauk, and there's a special street called Ditch Plains. I think like Jimmy Buffett bought a house on that street. All these famous people, want to surf, at Ditch Plains. So one day, this is really early in the season, pre-summer. I'm going to say late April, early May. And I was never a great surfer, but my strength in the water is that I was a good paddler. It's funny. I heard Laurel Hamilton, the big wave surfer, talk about this. And he was a kid. He would paddle. I was a good paddler, and I was fast. And it makes you catch a wave easy. But I was an average surfer, so I hated wearing a wetsuit. Because when you put your wetsuit on, and I had like a 3-2, which is like a certain thickness, it just slowed me down in the water. And I feel like I couldn't move. I hated wearing a wetsuit. So, even if the water was really cold, I try to warm myself up. I want to be mobile in the water. So I'm out in Ditch Plains. My wife can barely even swim. So she's always like reading a book on the beach. And I said, before I go in the water, the waves were looking pretty good, but the break was pretty far out. So you had to paddle like good 10 minutes to get out to the break. And breaks change from day to day. So I said, let me first, before anything, let me just jump in the water and see, how it feels. So I remember diving in the water. And the water, it was early in the season. I made a mistake. I should have just felt the water. It was like shockingly cold. I'm talking so cold, it takes your breath away, and my heart palpitated. I'm like, I got a blip. I said, whoa, this water's cold. And I almost got a headache from it. So it was so crazy cold. Everyone else was surfing out there with wetsuits on. And I just kind of shocked me. And, actually Montauk is also known for riptides. A riptide is like a cross current. And a riptide could travel at 20 miles an hour. And typically how you get out of a riptide is like you kind of go sideways, you kind of roll out of it. I also lifeguarded too, so I used to be pretty good with this stuff. But I was so shocked and so taken by surprise by how cold the water was. I got instantly caught in a riptide, and I'm talking within 60 seconds, I am like 200 yards out in the ocean in this frigid, cold water. And I had to say, I said, I'm going to drown. This is it. I'm dead. My wife is reading a book on the beach, and I have to say, and I couldn't, you can't even yell the other surfers though. So I wasn't really in a bad break. It just was frigid cold. And all of a sudden, I got thrown out of the riptide. Like I'm 200 yards out. And I have to say, I don't know how, I just swam for my life and made it to shore. I thought that was it. But I have to say, ever since then, it just puts the fear in you, and something else similar to this happened to me too. If you talk to surfers who really surf, you'll hear stories like this. This is such a common story. Like there's so many times within your life when you're in surfing where you think you're going to die, and all of a sudden some guy or gal grabs you. Same thing happened to me in Costa Rica. I was surfing like 5-6 foot waves, which I was way over my skill level, and I got just hammered on this like monster wave. And I was spinning. Sometimes you spin on the water. You don't know where the sky is. You don't know where the ground is. And all of a sudden, I remember some guy, some local from Costa Rica, saved me. He just grabbed me, and I just got my board. He helped me. I said, "Whoa!" He said, "That was a big wave. That was like a 6-7 foot wave you were just on." So it's surfing. I haven't surfed in a while, but if it's perfect when we go out there this week, and I can rent the board, but probably I won't. I don't want to encourage my kids to surf. Risky sport. Let's see what I think. I say, yeah, I know, scary, Andrew. It really was scary. It really is. I guess I'm getting old. I'll turn to 59. Thanks, Mike. Gotta go. Oh, thanks, but I really appreciate you hearing my silly stories. I guess I went a little too off topic, but I appreciate you coming in. I'm gonna do these lives once a week, and I'm also doing something cool. Even on Instagram, I started going live every morning. I've been documenting exactly what I talked about today. Oh, Your wife's got it down. Book on the beach. Yes, I definitely agree. Okay, that's great. I appreciate you hearing my story. I guess I got a little sidetracked. So any other questions, guys and gals, before I go? Anything else? You can ask me anything. I missed a question here. Okay. Why do I have a running stomach after breaking a fast? I have to say, when it's really hard to say. I would, this is what I would do. The next time you break a fast and it happens, document it. Write down exactly what you ate when you break the fast. Keep notes, and all of a sudden the answer might be right there. Maybe a particular food you're eating, maybe a combinations of food you're eating. I would also write down the length of your fast and like what you were doing when you're fasting. Like maybe you're dehydrated, maybe you weren't taking enough sodium. It's hard to say, but I find that when you keep track and you write everything down, that's why I also love. I know we're talking to Andrew, but that's why I love now using those apps. So just even if you don't use the app, just look things up, write things down, keep notes, and then you can always reference it. So maybe the next time you break a fast, like you feel great, and you say, "Wow, what did I do? It's right here." And then you compare it to what you did in the past. Writing it down can really help. And you can solve your own problems that way. Now, you may be allergic to something, and also when you're in a fasted state, your stomach shrinks a little bit. Maybe the volume, it could be the volume of food. Maybe you say to yourself, when I break my fast and I eat 500 calories, like maybe I'm fine. Or maybe you really want to ease out of it. Maybe sometimes when people do extended fasting, say they do a 3-day fast, a lot of people like to break their fast with a little bone broth, or a little chicken broth, something really, really easy. You drink that, you wait a couple hours, then you maybe have a piece of fruit, something that's also easy, like digestible. You have a piece of, even though I'm at the low carb eating, you have a piece of toast. You have to experiment and figure out what works for you. But hard to say, but try that, Winnie. Try that. Let's see. And any other questions out there? It's interesting. Sometimes the questions come in with like a minute or two delay. So I'm going to give everyone a couple more minutes and anything else. Otherwise, then I'm going to hit the road. I'm going to try to film another video today. I think I'm going to do that video on blood flow restriction training. I'm going to do a little more research on it, and then I'll make a great video on blood flow restriction. I'm not sure if I should... I'm probably going to go live when I go on vacation next week, but I don't know if I should kill myself this week and try to record 2 or 3 videos so I don't miss a week of doing any recorded videos on the channel. But I'll definitely be going live. I'm probably going to document my whole trip on Instagram if you want to follow me. Mike Kohler Fitness on Instagram. It's kind of fun. I sometimes I do the whole car right out there. My wife's not that into it. she doesn't want to be on film. But my kids kind of like it, and I document the whole trip. I'll show you my cheat meals. That's another thing I'm going to start doing, because some people, email me and contact. I said, "Mike, do you ever eat anything bad? How are you surviving on such little calories?" Because I typically don't post my cheat meals. I'm going to start doing that. I really have to start doing it. So next week, when I'm on vacation, I'll take pictures of the foods that I'm eating. It's funny because the hotel we're staying gives you free breakfast. I'm still not big on breakfast. I'll have some coffee, maybe a little something, but I'll have probably a good lunch. We generally go to this Italian deli, bring food to the beach. We eat at the beach. I'll show you what I'm eating there. So I'll probably maybe actually even eat a baguette of something. I may even actually have a sandwich, which I typically would never do. And then I'll show you what we're doing in the evening. And we're going to go to my favorite seafood place. If you ever go out to the Hamptons, Boswick's is incredible. It's one of these like plastic forks and paper plate places. Best seafood in the Hamptons. But I'm curious to see what the Hamptons are all about. I'm hearing some weird things about it. It's kind of a glitzy place, the Hamptons. Like if you're in New York, or all the wealthy people. I'm not wealthy, but I stay at a hotel. Right, all the wealthy people go out to the Hamptons. They own homes, And sometimes, like, it's really hard getting into restaurants. It's kind of tough. But I've been doing it since I'm a kid, and we know our routine there. But I heard that everyone raised their prices. I hear that it's hard to get workers at the at the restaurant. So I'm curious to see, and we missed it last year because of the pandemic. I'm curious to see the change. But I'll take pictures of all my food if you want to check it out. I'll put them on my Instagram, and I'll probably do at least one YouTube live. I may do it with my phone, at the hotel, and you see if you want to tune in. It'll be fun. Okay. Yes, want to see it. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm gonna start doing that. Next time when I take even when I'm not vacationing, next time when I take a diet break and I take like a whole week off or 2 weeks off, I'll post all my meals so you know that I'm like a normal person, and I'm not perfect all the time, obviously. And like I said, it's good to take diet breaks. Okay. Any other questions out there? Anyone? I know we still got about 7 to 10 people in the room, so if you have a question, let's hear it. I'd love to answer it. I wanted to go an hour. It's 52 minutes. I wanted to go like a full 60 minutes if you can. So ask me anything about working out, anything about diet, anything about weight loss. I'd love to answer. Anything about New York. If you may come into a trip to New York, I'm born and raised in New York. I know New York really well. Actually, I did a really interesting video about New York that it didn't do anything. I talk about like fine dining in New York. And like for example, my wife used to get taken out to all these fancy restaurants for she has a corporate job, and we would go to all these great restaurants like La Bernardin. All these amazing restaurants. And I did a video on like how to eat healthy in these fancy New York restaurants, and it didn't do well, but I think it's a really good video. You should look for it. It's kind of a fun video. Okay, get this. Okay, well, I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Dan, how often do you take a break from calorie restriction? Okay, Dan, that's a good question. Well, like I said, I do two specific things. Either I do calorie cycling, where I'm constantly doing that. Yes, La Bernardin. That's probably my all-time favorite restaurant, La Bernardin. Eric, the guy, he's on TV all the time. Unfortunately, Anthony's a good friend. That was so sad when he passed away. That was crazy. So how I take a diet break, I do it in two different ways. Either I'm always varying my intermittent fasting strategy, so I'm cycling calories, and that's one way I mean by taking a diet break. So for example, like one day I might do a 16-8 and you'd say 3 meals a day. So say I'm eating 2,000 calories that day. The next day I might do an OMAD day where I'm having one big meal, only eating say 1,200 calories. The third day I may just take a day off from fasting, where I'm eating 2,500, 3,000 calories. And that's what I mean by like putting the intermittent back in intermittent fasting. So one way I take a diet break is by just constantly varying my intermittent fasting strategy, and then I automatically cycle calories, which minimizes the slowdown in my metabolism, make sure I'm not in any nutrient deficiencies. So that's one way, and that's a great long-term strategy. I think you can do that somewhat indefinitely. If you do like a 16-8 one day, an 18-6 the next day, take a day off, do a 24-hour fast, go back to a 16-8, do an OMAD day, take a day off on the weekend on a Saturday, go out to dinner, eat whatever you want. You can do that long term, and I think it works incredibly well. But then the other thing I would do is sometimes, like it's the example of this week, when I'm really tightening up the diet, I'm really going to somewhat of an aggressive calorie deficit by doing a 20-hour fast with a 4-hour eating window 5 days in a row. Say you did that 4 weeks in a row and you lost 10, 15 pounds. I think it's time to take a diet break and just straight up take a week or two off. And there's one great study I quote it all the time, where they took a number of people, they put them on like a calorie restricted, like fasting type diet, not even fasting. Let's say calorie restricted diet for 6 weeks. They lost weight, and then one group took a diet break, where for 2 weeks they increased the calories to maintenance, where the other group didn't. And then they looked at these people 6 months later. The people who took the diet break, kept the weight off long term and did much better, had a less slowdown in their basal metabolic rate and their metabolism than the group that didn't. And people quote that study a lot. And that study's a few years old. I did a video about it. I have to say, there was a recent study that came out that did not show that showed that there really was no difference. But there are meta-analysis that say that there is definitely something to calorie cycling and doing taking diet breaks. And if you talk to any, like I always say, to any physique athlete, and I put, I've been working in gym from the age of 16. I'm 59. I've done thousands of exercise and diet programs with people. Physique athletes have been cycling the calories and taking diet breaks for decades and decades. Even if the science doesn't 100% support it, I truly think it works, especially if you hit a weight loss plateau. I know it can be counterintuitive to say up your calories. And like I said, we're not talking about up your calories like eating potato chips and cookies and cakes and going to Dunkin' Donuts and eating a whole box of Munchkin. We're talking about good quality food, upping your protein. Like there's a thermic effect of protein. For every 100 grams of protein you eat, you increase your it increases your metabolism. Like 30% of the calories are burnt up digesting and processing the protein. And that's what I mean by taking diet breaks, eating good quality food, but upping. And it could be difficult figuring out maintenance, but like I said before, eat 500 calories more, eat 750 calories more. That'll probably put you at maintenance if you've been in a deficit, like 10 times your body weight. So I hope that answered your question. Let's see. Okay. Anything else? Well, almost at an hour. We got like a couple more minutes. Anything else? I wonder if Andrea ever went to La Bernardin. Yeah, that's my favorite restaurant. Okay, Andrea. Okay, my own experience support. Let's see. Andrea says, my own experience supports your theory. Totally agree. Also helps protect. I agree. And I should really, I should talk about that more. Like when people work with me really one-on-one, I kind of do get into the psychological end of it and like the mindset of weight loss. You need to indulge at yourself every now and then. You really do. Like your life can't revolve around just, hey, can't just revolve around calories and all that. Hey, Kathy's in here. Kathy, how you doing? Love you. I appreciate it, Kathy. Thanks for showing up. This is great. You look great. Thanks. Yeah, you have to be normal and human, right? I mean, you have to eat some of the things you want every now and then, for sure. Okay. And any other questions out there? I want to give you one more minute because there's a little bit of a delay. It's funny. I almost had a guest. I almost had a guest to help me today because sometimes I have. Essentially, you probably don't know I'm like dyslexic. I talk about it every now and then. I have reversal. Like my middle name is Joseph. To this day, I have a trouble figuring out which way the J goes. It's really bizarre. Have you ever watched the movie Percy Jackson where the words are mixed up? I get that. That happens to me all the time. Like I read something. If you notice there's a lot of misspellings on my word, I just don't see the misspellings. So sometimes I even have a hard time reading these comments quickly and answering people's questions. That's why I would love to do these live streams with an assistant. I almost had someone today, which would have been great. Let's see what Kathy's got. Best protein for vegetarians. Well, I think, actually, I'm working with a guy at my gym, and he's doing incredibly well, and he's a vegan. And this is, I even did a video on this maybe about a month ago. I think I think that one of the biggest mistakes like vegetarians and vegans, not that it's a mistake, but I'm more on the higher protein end of things. And you want complete protein. I really think you have to supplement your diet with like a hemp seed or a pea protein. And I do it. I personally take hemp seed all the time. It's great complete protein, high in fiber too, has all the essential amino acids, so important. Like I said, I don't know if you were here earlier, Kathy, but I was talking about sometimes when I do my resistance training, I'll take collagen protein. You probably wouldn't have collagen protein because that's an animal protein, but it's incomplete, and I mix it with hemp seed to make it complete. So I think, you probably will know, since you are a vegetarian, you probably, your favorite vegetarian sources like tofu and all the sources. I don't know if you're eating dairy, I'm assuming you're not having eggs, but I probably would have a pea protein, which is a complete protein, or a hemp seed protein. And I still, even if you're a vegetarian, I would go with 0.9 grams of protein per pound of lean body weight. So you look thinner, but I'm just going to make it up. Let's say, let's say you're 150 pounds and you're 20% body fat, and you want to eat 0.9 grams per pound of lean weight. That's going to put you at 100, 110, grams of protein a day. As a vegetarian, it's difficult. You can do it as a vegetarian without taking like a hemp seed or pea protein. But the thing is, you're going to have to eat such a volume of food. And even, you may just overload your system. You may be bloated. You may have issues like that. You can eat, obviously like broccoli, and you're a vegetarian, is a high protein food. It's just that it's so low in calories. But you get, on a percentage basis, broccoli is a high protein food. But just think of the amount of broccoli you have to eat to get 50 grams of protein. It's almost humanly impossible. That's why I like most vegetarians, especially if, like we said, you're working out, you're resistance training, you're coming to my gym. I pretty much recommend every vegetarian, every vegan to take like a protein, a pea protein or a hemp seed protein, like pre and post workout. Like my guy, he's about 170 pounds right now. He takes about 130, 140 grams of protein. He does 2 shakes of a combination of pea protein and hemp seed. I personally like hemp seed better. I don't like the taste of pea protein. He loves pea protein. And he buys Naked. He buys that Naked brand. I buy hemp seed from Whole Foods. I think it's a great product and it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's great. Let's see what we got. Hi, Doc. Hey, Green. I'm not a doctor. Sorry to say. I always try to say that. If you look under my videos, I always say I'm not a doctor, and I try to not to prescribe like I'm a doctor. I mean, I'm a fitness trainer, gym owner for over 30 years, but I've taken undergraduate courses in nutrition. I have a lot of background in it, and I read all the studies, but I'm not a doctor. I just want to be clear about that. Okay. I've been doing intermittent fasting since May, and I lost 11 pounds. Oh, cool. But now I have haven't seen any in the last 3 weeks. Okay. Haven't seen any results in the last 3 weeks. This is what I think probably happened to you, and I talk about it all the time. You probably were restricting calories for maybe too long, and you had that metabolic adaptation, metabolism slows down, you hit a weight loss plateau. So it's like I'm talking about in this video, ideal time, I know it's counterintuitive, to take a diet break. So I would probably take a week or 2 off, increase your calories. You don't have to go crazy. If you're a petite woman, eat 300 to 500 calories more a day for a couple of weeks or 2. Make sure you prioritize protein with the increase in calories. It's going to bump up your metabolism. It could knock you out of this plateau. I would try that. But if you want, I did a live video a couple of weeks ago going over, it was like an hour long, going over all the things you should do if you hit a weight loss plateau. Maybe you're not resistance training. Maybe you need to do a little bit of resistance training. That could really help too. Okay? And also, Kathy, I really appreciate you showing up too. And thanks, Korean woman, for showing up. I appreciate it. All right, so let me wrap it up. We did the hour, so I really appreciate you showing up. Thanks for you. So try the intermittent fast. I think it's great. I mean, to start off easy, even a 14-hour fast is doing something. You know, most people eat 6-7 meals a day. They wake up in the middle of the night, they grab something to eat. Even a 14-hour fast, start off easy, ease into it, and do, like I said, do it intermittently. You don't have to do it every day. Start off with a 14-hour fast 2-3 days a week, then go 16-8, 2-3 days a week. Ease into it. Just don't overdo it. I think you'll like the intermittent fasting. You know, vegetarians love it. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate everyone. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend. And follow me on Instagram when I do my whole trip next week. Okay? Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.